Want to turn to immigration? The sanctuary city standoff. San Diego County voted last night to back the Trump administration's court challenge to California sanctuary laws. President Trump took to Twitter this morning. He wrote this: "There is a revolution going on in California. So many sanctuary areas want out of this ridiculous, crime-infested and breeding concept. Jerry Brown is trying to back out of the National Guard at the border, but the people of the state are not happy, want security and safety now." This comes as Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, along with Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, are set to discuss border security and troop deployment at the southwest border today. Joining me right now, Fox News judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, good to see you.
Oh, good morning, Maria.
Your take on what will take place this morning and how we continue to see an increasing number of counties push back on the sanctuary laws of California. Or position. I should say sanctuary position, not laws.
Right. Well, there is a statute in California that requires governments to comply with the sanctuary city policies of the state. And there's a bit of the president's right, there's a bit of a revolution going on when individual cities, and particularly counties like San Diego County, a vibrant center of economic activity, is basically saying to Sacramento, the capital of the state, go take a hike. Legally, this is of very little significance because the courts will decide the lawsuit based upon whether the feds can tell the states, you will help us enforce our federal law. But politically, it is dynamic what is happening. And, of course, I understand the president's anger because by his refusal to cooperate with the governors of New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona, Governor Brown of California is effectively giving them an end run around the troops at the border for people that want to come from Mexico into the United States.
Right. And Dagan, we heard Jerry Brown yesterday basically saying, look, the National Guard may be headed over there, but they will have nothing to do with immigration or border control, which was astounding to me.
Well, it gives Jerry Brown cover by saying that, and I think the judge can weigh in, but there are restrictions on the role that the National Guard can play in terms of immigration enforcement at the border. They are barred based on federal law, Judge, isn't this right?
Yes.
From taking on a law enforcement role. So this is political cover for Jerry Brown, where he looks like he's getting tough. And in fact, the National Guard troops are just abiding by the letter of the law.
I mean, to what Dagan said, quite correct. The president is doing two things: symbol and substance. The symbol of troops at the border shows the sincerity with which the president wants to defend the borders. But the substance is that they are doing non-law enforcement work formerly done by Border Patrol, thus freeing up Border Patrol to do what Border Patrol was sent there to do. So there is a practical aspect as well as a symbolic aspect to them being there.
Yeah. Judge, let me switch gears, ask you about the FBI, and we continue to hear new information. We've got new questions this morning over the relationship between Hillary Clinton, the Department of Justice, and the FBI. No surprise, frankly, but House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows is asking for the emails and the text messages between the disgraced FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. He wants them to be re-examined. He sent a letter to House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy. Meadows writes that he recently uncovered documents that, quote, suggest a concerning level of coordination between the Department of Justice and the FBI throughout crucial moments of the investigation into Clinton's private email server. These findings directly contradict repeated assertions from former FBI Director Jim Comey that the Bureau and the DOJ did not coordinate on the Clinton email probe. Judge, your take on this?
Full disclosure, Mark Meadows is a friend of mine, and we talk frequently, though we have not discussed this particular issue. While I agree with him that there are things there we need to know about, oh, man, do we really need another investigation? Here's what I think should be done. The statute of limitations has not yet run. The evidence of Mrs. Clinton's guilt is overwhelming. The evidence of the defects in Jim Comey's reasons for not prosecuting her is so clear that a first-year law student could make the case. Attorney General Sessions, take this evidence, give it to a fresh pair of prosecutors, let them present it to a grand jury and decide whether or not she should be indicted. Now, the other argument is we're not a banana republic. We don't indict the person that lost for president. But does she get a free pass on committing felonies because she ran for president? Of course not.
Yeah, but Judge, that's what it looks like has taken place here.
Yes.
I mean, we know that these texts continue to show an incredible amount of bias, but now they're suggesting that not only was there bias, but there was coordination in doing anything that they could to keep Donald Trump out of the White House, or if it were that he were to win, that have some kind of an insurance policy to delegitimize his presidency.
If the investigation that Congressman Meadows wants is to find out what FBI agents were doing, and I've got to tell you, it's a small minority of FBI agents, in order to prevent Donald Trump's victory, that needs to be exposed. But this Hillary stuff has just been dragging on so long. Present this to a grand jury and let them indict her. She should be treated like anybody else.
Right. Well, listen, you make a good point, but that's the point. She's not being treated like anybody else, because anybody else would be in deep hot water had they been doing all of this in terms of email and hiding some of the emails as well. Now, Jim Comey, meanwhile, is out taking hits at President Trump. How extraordinary is this, Judge? You've got Jim Comey appearing on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert last night, touching on Trump's reaction to his contentious tell-all book. Watch this.
He's tweeted at me probably 50 times. I've been gone for a year. I'm like a breakup he can't get over. He wakes up in the morning. Wow. I'm out there living my best life. He wakes up in the morning and tweets at me. Wow.
I mean,
Judge,
I am not happy.
Living his best life while there are 2 congressional investigations into the FBI and DOJ's performance.
I'm not happy about a tweet storm between a president I respect and want to be successful and a former FBI director who has some faults but also had some great assets in managing the FBI and still commands the loyalty of many FBI agents, and I wish they could dial it back. But an area I suggest be looked at is Loretta Lynch. One good thing that has come out of Jim Comey's book tour is the political decisions made by Mrs. Lynch, not law enforcement, political, while she was the Attorney General. The public needs to know about that. And if crimes were committed, that needs to be examined.
Well, she said to him, call the criminal investigation a matter. Don't call it a criminal investigation. That was one thing. And we know about the famous, now infamous meeting on the tarmac with Bill Clinton just a few days before Hillary was to go on her interview with the FBI, which wasn't even recorded.
Right. Did Loretta Lynch mobilize the DOJ, which is supposed to be a neutral prosecuting entity, to attempt to salvage the political campaign of Hillary Clinton for president? That's what we need to know.
All right, Judge, we will watch that. Thanks so much. Always great to see you,
All
Judge
the best.
Andrew
Good luck
Napolitano.
with